Hi, my name is Maximilian Maxine and my metric number is RCB24702042. So, in this vlog, I will reflect on my own personal teaching identity, especially my beliefs, values, and biases about language learning. To begin with, one of my main beliefs is that grammar plays an important role in English learning. I believe grammar helps students to form clear and correct sentences, especially in writing tests where accuracy matters. In my own learning experience, I often focused on grammatical accuracy and grammatical rules because I wanted to avoid making mistakes, even though I still made mistakes. Now, because of this, I used to think that mastering grammar should come first before students are able to communicate confidently in English. However, as I continue learning about language teaching, I start to realize that grammar alone is not enough. Communication is equally important. Even if students know many grammar rules, they may still struggle to use English in real life situations if they are not given enough chances to speak or interact. I begin to understand that language learning is not only about being correct, but also about being able to express meaning and ideas. Another belief I have is related to classroom approach. I feel that lessons should not be fully teacher-centered. In a teacher-centered classroom, students mostly listen and take notes, which can sometimes make learning too passive. From my own perspective, students should learn more effectively when they are actively involved in the lesson, such as through discussions, group activities, or question and answer session, Q&A. I believe this kind of learning helps students to stay engaged and improves their understanding. At the same time, I also notice a bias in myself. I tend to favor outspoken students during classroom participation. This is because they respond quickly, participate actively, and make the lesson feel more interactive. However, I realize that I sometimes assume that active participation means better understanding, which may not always be true. Some students may understand the lesson well but prefer to stay quiet due to personality or lack of confidence. Now, moving on to inclusivity in language teaching. My background as a language learner has influenced on how I view different types of students in the classrooms. Personally, I have experienced feeling nervous when speaking English. I often worried about making mistake or being judged by the others. Because of this experience, I can understand how shy students feel when they are asked to speak in front of the class. I realize does I realize that silence does not mean students are not learning. Sometimes it simply means they just lack of confidence or feel anxious. Anxious, yes. Now this experience has made me more sensitive towards shy learners. In my future classroom, I want to create a safe and supportive environment where students feel comfortable to try speaking English without fear of being corrected too harshly or laughed at. In addition, I also understand that students have different proficiency levels. Some students may learn English faster, while the others may need more time and support. Earlier in my learning journey, I used to think that all students could learn in the same way using the same method. However, I now realized that classrooms are diverse and teachers need to adapt their teaching strategies to meet different learning needs. Now, because of this, I believe teachers should be more flexible. For example, stronger students can be given more challenging tasks, while weaker students may need more guidance and scaffolding by the teacher. This helps to ensure that all students are included in the learning process and no one is left behind. Another aspect that I would like to highlight is how important uh, how important it is for teachers to be patient when working with different types of learners. In a diverse classroom, some students may take longer to respond and understand the instruction, especially when learning a second language. From my own experience, I realized that rushing students can make them feel more stressed and less confident. Therefore, I believe teachers should give students enough wait time and repeated support so that they can gradually build their understanding at their own pace. Pace. Yes, pace. Now, in terms of theory, there's one important concept that relates strongly to my reflection in the work of Lev Vygotsky theory, especially his ideas of the zone of proximal development, or ZPD. So Vygotsky explains that students learn best when they are able to complete tasks with guidance from a teacher or more capable peers. In other words, learning happens through interaction and support, not in isolation when you let the students to do the work individually. This idea connects closely with my belief that students should learn through communication and collaboration rather than only individual work. So, in my future teaching practice, I plan to apply this theory by using pair work and group activities more often in my classroom. For example, I will encourage students to work together when completing speaking tasks so they can support each other and share ideas. Stronger students can help weaker students, which creates a more cooperative learning environment. I also believe this approach can help to reduce anxiety among shy students. When students speak in smaller groups instead of speaking directly in front of the whole class, they may feel more confident and less pressured. Over time, this can help to build their confidence in using English. Now, as a teacher, I also see my role as a guide rather than someone who only delivers information. I will support students by giving them help when needed, but also allow them to explore and learn through interaction. This is aligned with Vygotsky theory, where the idea is about scaffolding, where learners also gradually become more independent as they gain experience and support. Now, let's talk about my overall learning experience. After completing the 3 vlog entries, I realized that language teaching is not as simple as initially thought. At first, I used to think that teaching English mainly focuses on grammar rules and accuracy. However, through this reflection process, I begin to understand that teaching is much broader than that. It involves communication, student engagement, emotional support, and understanding different learners in the classroom. This assignment helped me to reflect more deeply on my own beliefs as a learner and how those experiences influence my teaching identity. I also realized that being a teacher is not only about delivering knowledge, but also about creating an environment where students feel comfortable and motivated to learn. Now, what is change in my perspective? One of the biggest changes in my perspective is my shift from a more teacher-centered view to a more student-centered approach. Previously, I believed that teachers should lead most of the lesson and students should mainly listen and follow the instructions. I also used to think that mastering grammar rules was the most important part of learning English. However, now I understand that students learn better when they are actively involved in the learning process. Communication plays a very important role in language learning. Students need opportunities to speak, to interact, and use the language in meaningful ways, not just by memorizing rules. Now, another change in my thinking is related to learner differences. I used to assume that all students could learn in the same way using the same teaching method. But now I realize that every student is different. Every student is different. Some students are confident speakers, while others they're just shy and need more time to express themselves. Some students learn quickly while others need more support and guidance by the teacher. This realization helps me to understand that teaching requires flexibility and awareness of students' needs. Okay, so through this reflection, I also developed a deeper understanding of inclusivity in the classroom. I now realize that shy students should not be misunderstood as students who are not learning in the class. Based on my own experience, I understand how nervous it can feel when you need to speak in English in front of others. Now, because of this, I learned that a supportive classroom environment is really important. Students should feel safe to make mistakes and learn from them without being fear of embarrassment. I also understand that participation can take different forms. Some students may speak actively in class, while others may prefer to listen first before they speak. Now, both types of learning are still valuable. This makes me realize that as a future teacher, I need to be more patient and more understanding towards different learners. Now, there are few key lessons that I will carry with me as a future educator. Firstly, I learned that interaction is very important in language learning. I learned that students do not only learn from the teacher, but also from each other. Secondly, I realized that emotional factors such as confidence and anxiety play a big role in learning English. A student may know the answer but feel too nervous to speak. Thirdly, I learned that teachers should not only focus on correctness but also on communication and meaning. Lastly, I understand that inclusivity is essential in every classroom. Every student deserves that they deserve equal opportunities to learn, regardless of their proficiency level or personality. After this reflection journey, I can clearly identify the kind of teacher I want to become. I want to be a supportive teacher who encourages students and helps them to feel confident in using English. I also want to be an interactive teacher who designs lessons that involve communications, collaboration, and active participation. I will also try to balance both grammar and communication in my teaching. I also want to make sure that my classroom is student-centered, where learners are not just passive listeners, but active participants in their own learning process. Most importantly, I want to create a safe learning environment where students are not afraid of making mistakes and are encouraged to grow at their own pace. Overall, this vlog assignment has helped me to grow not only as a future teacher but also as a reflective teacher. It allowed me to understand on my own strengths, biases, and areas for improvement. I now feel more prepared and aware of what it means to be a language teacher. I understand that teaching is not just about knowledge delivering, but about guiding, supporting, and inspiring students. That's all from me. Thank you for watching.